What is up, YouTube? Third Impact here, coming at you with the 10th episode of Space Dandy titled, There's Always Tomorrow, Baby. And that's a good saying. There might have been a little of that going on when I decided to delay this video by a day. I'm sorry about that, but if I can relate to the episode in any way, me and a bunch of my buddies were actually getting excited for the release of Dark Souls 2 tomorrow, and we're marathoning the first game. So, if I can related to the episode at all with the video game talk, Meow was actually playing a game on his phone called Space Galaga, which was a free-to-play shoot-'em-up game that was released to promote Space Dandy before the release of the anime. So if you want to play that video game that Meow was playing on his phone, you can go download that. Also, Meow's buddies back from his home planet, they seem to really like video games too, which was pretty funny. And Space Dandy apparently kicked their ass when he went over to their place to play, so that was pretty cool. But with all that out of the way, this episode was one of my favorite episodes of Space Dandy, definitely in my top 3 episodes, so let's just jump right in. So this is a time loop episode, and even though the real meat of the episode isn't concerned with how all of this begins to go down, I feel like I should address it, because it is important as to why all this stuff happens. So even though this is a much more slow-paced character piece episode on the Beetlejuice planet, the episode does start off with a bang with the Golgol Empire and their war that the narrator mentioned at the beginning of the series. One force is using this super legendary robot weapon. Dr. Gel's forces attempt to use this giant head bomb thing. It's very confusing as to what's exactly going on. But the head, Dr. Gel's plan, obviously it fails. It blows up, sends Paonium all over the universe, and this one piece of Paonium hits this calendar on this Beetlejuice planet, which Dandy QT Meow land on, Meow's homeworld, hits this calendar and keeps this day playing in a continuous loop. So we've had emotionally charged episodes in the past between the girl in A Merry Companion is a Wagon in Space Baby and the dog Laika in The Lonely Pooch Planet. But this episode's themes resonated with me personally a lot more than any of the themes in those episodes. This was a really sweet episode that really was awesome character develop on Meow's part, where he was made to be this slacker guy. He still is a slacker, obviously, but I felt like there's been so many episodes where Meow was just shit on, and he was teased and made fun of a lot in this episode too. But this episode really got me feeling for Meow and really got you to understand a little bit more the inner workings of Meow and maybe why he is the way that he is. While the main plot of the episode is concerned with the crew, Blockhead, Bonehead, and Pinhead, which they continued from the Space Race episode, which is pretty funny, as much as it deals with them realizing they're stuck in this time loop and escaping this time loop, I feel like the main focus of this episode is on Meow and his growth as a character, deciding whether or not he wants to be staying on the planet, and then eventually leaving at the end. So from the moment that Meow, Dandy, and QT get to Meow's old place, you learn all about Meow's family, their dad who's a metal worker, and also how Meow used to have this dream of becoming a metal worker just like his dad, because he does love and respect his dad. And he wanted to become just like him, make him proud, make his family proud, obviously. But somewhere along the way, Meow decided that he didn't want to stay in that town anymore. He thought it was boring, he thought there was nothing to do. And you can see throughout this entire episode the embarrassment and the guilt that Meow feels towards his father, towards his family. Even though they aren't necessarily returning it, he feels that he didn't, amount to what his father would have expected of him, or his family would have expected of him. And throughout this whole time loop scenario, QT and Space Dandy just want to get out of there, they want to end this time loop, and they want to get back to boobies, which is probably the way that Meow felt before the time loop, back when he lived on planet Beetlejuice. But living the same day over and over and over again makes him realize and appreciate the slower pace of this sort of lifestyle, working yourself into a sweat, having a nice drink at the end of the day, all this sort of thing. And Meow also realizes, through Dandy conversing with his father and all these sorts of things, he's told his dad and his family he's off in space, he's doing his thing, he's traveling, And his dad supports him in that. He wants him to see space, he wants him to go out and live his life. But at the same time, he hasn't really made a name for himself. He hasn't amounted to a whole lot. In every episode of Space Dandy, they get up to some pretty crazy stuff, and I'm sure he'd have some stories to tell, but we don't know exactly how all that works in the Space Dandy universe with how the plot works and how it resets. But for the most part, they just go to boobies and goof around and don't really do a whole lot, especially Meow. So that's where you see the guilt in all these episodes when he's dealing with his family, because they don't know what he does when he's off just goofing around on the Aloha Oi. And during this time loop, we see some of the parts of Meow's old life. We see the most popular girl in high school, Katy, who now works as a waitress. And during this time loop, Meow kind of thinks, hey, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to live here. Maybe I could marry Katy. And he's tempted by his old buddies who just hang around and play video games, who he doesn't end up hanging out with, but Dandy does hang out with. So it's kind of neat to see those little things that happen when you go back to your old hometown after not being there for a long time, and I felt like they did that really well. But near the end of the episode, you find out that Katy is actually gay, and then that's like the thing that sends Meow off the deep end and wants to actually make it the next day and move on. So like that was kind of funny. And there's a couple really funny parts with them. Okay, firstly, those two nerd video game friends of Meow's, they sing this is probably the weirdest part in the whole episode. I had to watch the dub and the sub for this one because I just didn't even understand what was happening. They were rapping about going to Yahoo Answers to find the answers to your questions, but in the dub they call it a Wahoo, so that was kind of confusing. But when they're stuck trying to figure out what to do, they get sent by these video game players to Yahoo Answers to figure out why they're stuck in a time loop, and they're trolled online and told, well, you guys just aren't turning the page on the calendar. And they're like, these idiots. But then when they go to turn the page on the calendar, it can't turn. And then it leads into this whole thing where Dandy's blasting his laser at it. He's shooting a machine gun at it. He pulls a rocket launcher out of nowhere and fires the rocket launcher at it, and it does nothing. So they're in a real tight spot. They can't pull any pages out of this thing. And Meow's father shows up, and he's a steel worker, and he works with very precise measurements and cutting things. So he says, like, oh, well, maybe I could do it. And the whole thing is, they can't pull too many pages. They need just the one, and it's 0.1 millimeters thick. But Meow's dad's pretty sure he can do it. There's a really nice musical moment where he's doing it in his garage, and they're all watching. And he cuts the page off, and the page goes flying up in the air, and it disappears. And it was just a really nice moment, how that page, all of what that time loop represented for Meow and his character, and also his father, and like just them in general. And it was also just really nice that Meow's father was the one that was able to allow them to go back and travel in space, because obviously his dad supported him initially, Meow, in going off into space, living his life, and he was also the one that was able to allow Meow to go back into space and to continue to live his life out there. So that was really nice. And in the very end, Meow is feeling a little guilty, and his dad just is like, again, he's like, don't worry about it, go out there, have fun, and they leave. And it just ends on a nice little somber note. Meow's he's a little, like, still upset about all the family stuff, but he's back on the Aloha Oi with QT and Space Dandy, and even though they're not stuck in a time loop anymore, their days are pretty much just the same. So, I don't know. It was a very touching episode, for me at least. I don't know how you guys felt. Let me know in the comments, but definitely one of my favorite episodes of Space Dandy. Sorry again for the delay, and I will see you guys soon. Peace.